The Galactic Defense Academy has become a prestigious finishing school for elite alien cadets who've never faced real combat, turning military training into a social hierarchy based on species superiority and family connections. A seemingly fragile human female cadet arrives and systematically dismantles every combat simulation, tactical scenario, and physical challenge while the Academy's systems scream warnings that no one bothers to read. When a real enemy fleet attacks the Academy, the pampered alien cadets discover that their primitive human classmate is actually a battle-hardened veteran whose species treats warfare like a recreational sport. The Galactic Defense Academy stood like a monument to alien superiority, its crystalline spires reaching toward 3 suns that cast rainbow shadows across the pristine courtyards. For 200 years it had been the finishing school for the galaxy's most privileged offspring, a place where the children of senators, generals, and corporate overlords came to play soldier before inheriting their parents' empires. Today, however, something was about to shatter that perfect pampered peace. By the 7 moons of Altair, what is that thing? Commander Veyron's voice carried the particular brand of disgust reserved for finding something unpleasant stuck to one's boot. His silver skin gleamed in the afternoon light as he gestured with one of his 4 arms toward the Academy's main gate. Captain Orion adjusted his ceremonial sash and squinted through his compound eyes. The Zentorian's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his species. Looks like someone's lost, Veyron. Probably a maintenance worker who took a wrong turn at the servants' entrance. The object of their attention was a human female, no taller than most Academy cadets' shoulders, dragging a battered duffel bag behind her. Her uniform was regulation correct but looked like it had been through a food processor. Twice. Her dark hair was pulled back in a style that suggested she had cut it herself with a plasma torch, and she walked with the kind of easy confidence that made predators nervous. "Excuse me." The human stopped at the security checkpoint and smiled at the Vraxian guard, whose scales immediately shifted to a cautious orange. "Cadet Zara Chen reporting for duty. I believe I'm fashionably late for orientation." The guard's 3 eyes blinked in sequence as he consulted his data pad. "Chen, Zara, yes, here you are. Species, human. Planet of origin, Earth. Please place your hand on the scanner." Zara pressed her palm against the bioscanner, which immediately began flashing red like an angry Christmas tree. A klaxon wailed, and automated warnings began broadcasting in 17 different languages. "ERTR bin detected. Combat classification, extreme. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage." The guard's scales turned a deeper shade of orange. That's probably just a system glitch. These old scanners, you know, sometimes they mistake civilians for military personnel." "Oh, I'm sure that's it," Zara agreed, her smile never wavering. "Happens all the time." Behind her, a crowd of alien cadets had gathered to witness this amusing spectacle. Veyron pushed through the group, his chest puffed out with the self-importance that came from being the son of Altair's defense minister. Well, he announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Look what the cosmic wind blew in. A human, at the galaxy's premier military academy." His laughter was like the sound of expensive silverware being dropped down a garbage disposal. "I suppose they're letting anyone in these days." Orion joined him, towering over Zara by nearly 2 feet. "Careful, Veyron. Don't you know humans are dangerous? They once had wars with weapons that could destroy entire planets." His mandibles clicked again. Of course, that was back when they thought rocks were cutting-edge technology. The crowd of cadets erupted in laughter. There were Andromedans with their prismatic skin, Regelians with their superior intellects, and Capellans whose very presence supposedly elevated the intelligence of everyone around them. All of them had grown up hearing stories about the primitive backwater called Earth, where beings so unsophisticated they still used chemical propulsion and thought democracy was a good idea. "Wow," Zara said, hefting her duffel bag over her shoulder. "You guys rehearse this routine, or does the casual xenophobia just come naturally?" Veyron's silver skin flushed darker. "Xenophobia? Please, we simply recognize our place in the natural order. Some species are meant to lead," he gestured to himself and his companions, "and others are meant to follow. Or in your case, stay home and play with dirt." "Dirt, huh?" Zara's grin widened. "You know what we call dirt where I come from, a weapon. But hey, I'm sure you'll figure that out eventually." She turned back to the guard. "So am I cleared for entry, or should I come back when the scanner's feeling less dramatic?" The guard, clearly flustered by the continuing alarms, waved her through. Yes, please proceed. Your dormitory assignment is in your welcome packet. Try to ignore the warnings. As Zara walked through the gate, the red lights continued flashing, and the automated system kept repeating its increasingly frantic warnings. The alien cadets watched her go, their laughter gradually fading as something primitive and instinctual began whispering warnings in the back of their evolved minds. But they were too civilized to listen. Orientation began at dawn with what the Academy proudly called its character assessment protocol, which was really just a fancy name for organized hazing with official approval. Commander Strider, a battle-scarred draconian whose scales bore the marks of actual combat, stood before the assembled first-year cadets in the Academy's main training facility. "Welcome to Hell, Lava," he growled, his reptilian voice echoing off the walls. "Today we separate the warriors from the waste of oxygen. You'll face physical trials, mental challenges, and combat simulations designed to break the weak and forge the strong." Viron smirked and whispered to Orion, "This should be entertaining. I give the human 10 minutes before she's crying for mommy." 10 minutes? Orion's mandibles clicked with amusement. "You're being generous. I say 5. The first trial was the gravity chamber, where cadets had to complete an obstacle course under 3 times normal gravity. One by one, the alien cadets struggled through the course, their advanced physiology allowing them to endure what would crush most lesser species. When Zara's turn came, the crowd of spectators pressed against the observation windows, eager to watch the human fail spectacularly. Zara stepped into the chamber, rolled her shoulders, and cracked her neck. 3 times gravity? Cute. Is this the kiddie setting? The gravity field activated, and instead of being crushed to the ground like everyone expected, Zara simply began jogging through the course. Not running, jogging, like she was taking a leisurely stroll through a park. She vaulted over barriers that had taken others precious minutes to climb, swung across gaps that had claimed several victims, and finished the course in record time while humming what sounded suspiciously like a drinking song. "Time, 4 minutes, 37 seconds, announced the automated system, new Academy record. Major Kale, the Academy's psychological warfare instructor, frowned at his data pad. The Centaurians' multiple brains were supposedly capable of processing tactical information at superhuman speeds, yet something about this human's performance didn't compute. "Impressive," he muttered, "though probably just adrenaline. Let's see how she handles intellectual challenges." The academic portion consisted of tactical scenario planning, where cadets were presented with complex military situations and asked to develop solutions. The problems were deliberately designed to take hours of careful analysis, requiring knowledge of multiple species combat doctrines, fleet compositions, and strategic weaknesses. Zara glanced at her test pad, yawned, and began scribbling answers immediately. Question 1. How do you defeat a Krex'tar battle fleet with inferior numbers and outdated equipment? She wrote quickly. Easy. Krex'tar always attack in delta formation because they're obsessed with geometric perfection. Feint left, hit the apex ship with concentrated fire. Watch the whole formation collapse like a house of cards. Next. Question 2. Analyze the defensive capabilities of a Regelian fortress world. More scribbling. Regelians are brilliant but predictable. They'll have accounted for every logical attack vector except the completely insane ones. So you don't attack the planet, you drop the moon on it. Problem solved. Question 3. Plan a covert insertion into Andromedan space. Zara was barely reading the questions now. Andromedans can see across most of the electromagnetic spectrum, but they're blind to infrared signatures below freezing. Coat your ships in liquid nitrogen, approach during their solar eclipse season, and walk right through their sensor net. Honestly, do these people even try? She finished the entire examination in 18 minutes. Problems that typically took alien cadets 4 to 6 hours to solve, she'd answered while looking bored enough to fall asleep. Commander Strider stared at her test results, his reptilian brain struggling to process what he was seeing. Either this human is a tactical genius, or she's completely insane. Why not both? Major Kale suggested. The final challenge was the combat simulation chamber, where cadets faced holographic enemies in life-or-death scenarios. The Academy used military-grade projectors that could actually injure or kill participants if they failed to respond appropriately. It was designed to be the ultimate test of combat readiness. Zara entered the simulation chamber, and the system activated a scenario labeled Impossible Odds, 50 enemy soldiers in an urban warfare environment with no cover and limited ammunition. What followed could only be described as performance art. "Oh, come on," Zara complained as the first wave of holographic enemies appeared. 50 guys with energy rifles, and they're all standing in the open? What kind of tactical AI programmed this garbage? She dodged a plasma bolt with casual ease. Did a toddler design this scenario? She grabbed a simulated pipe from the ground and began systematically dismantling the enemy force while providing running commentary like a disappointed video game reviewer. "See, this guy's obviously never heard of cover fire, and this one's telegraphing his shots like he's sending a birthday invitation. Oh, and apparently nobody told these holograms about crossfire tactics." She used the pipe to vault over a barrier and landed behind 3 enemies. Seriously, which intern programmed this? The simulation ended in 3 minutes and 42 seconds. Zara stood in the middle of 50 deactivated enemy projections, not even breathing hard. "New record," announced the system. "Previous best time, 27 minutes, 15 seconds. Commander Strider and Major Kale exchanged glances that spoke volumes about their growing confusion and concern. "That," said Major Kale slowly, "should not have been possible." Zara dusted off her hands and headed for the exit. "Yeah, well, next time maybe invest in better programming. This stuff wouldn't challenge a kindergartner from Earth." As she walked away, both instructors noticed that the Academy's warning systems were still flashing red every time she moved past a sensor. The dining hall of the Galactic Defense Academy was a carefully orchestrated display of species hierarchy. Altarians sat at the premium tables near the windows, their silver skin catching the light like living jewelry. Centaurians occupied the center section, their compound eyes allowing them to monitor everyone simultaneously. The lesser species were relegated to tables further from the serving stations, where they had to wait longer for food that was somehow always slightly colder. And then there was the human, sitting alone at a corner table, eating what appeared to be military rations she'd brought from home instead of the Academy's gourmet molecular cuisine. "This is intolerable," Veyron announced to his assembled followers. His forearms gestured dramatically as he rose from his table. "That primitive creature is making a mockery of everything this Academy stands for." Orion clicked his mandibles in agreement. "She's probably too stupid to understand the social order. Someone should explain it to her." They approached Zara's table like a pack of well-dressed predators, their footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet dining hall. Other cadets turned to watch what promised to be the entertainment highlight of their day. "Human," Veyron said, looming over Zara's table with the practiced arrogance of someone who'd never been told no. "I don't think you understand how things work here." Zara looked up from her ration pack, chewing thoughtfully. "Oh, I understand perfectly. You're the self-appointed alpha of a bunch of spoiled trust fund babies playing soldier. You've never seen real combat, never faced actual danger, and you compensate by bullying anyone you perceive as weak." She took another bite. "Did I miss anything?" The dining hall went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop if pins existed in a gravity-controlled environment. Veyron's silver skin flushed darker. "You dare speak to me like that? Do you know who I am? My father commands the Altarian Defense Fleet. With one word from me, you could be expelled from this academy and shipped back to your mudball planet." "Your father, huh?" Zara nodded appreciatively. "That's cute. Tell me, does Daddy know you're here playing dress-up instead of learning actual military tactics? Because from what I've seen, the Altarian Defense Fleet's combat doctrine is about as sophisticated as a game of rock, paper, scissors." Several alien cadets gasped at the insult. Criticizing someone's family military traditions was considered deeply offensive in most galactic cultures. Orion stepped forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over Zara. "Perhaps you don't understand the stakes here, human. This academy trains the future leaders of the galaxy. We're being prepared to command fleets, conquer worlds, and shape the destiny of entire civilizations." Zara nearly choked on her food from laughing. "Conquer worlds? Oh, that's adorable. You guys think this is serious military training?" She wiped her eyes. "Where I come from, we call what you're doing summer camp, with better food." "And where exactly do you come from?" Veyron demanded. "Some backwater colony that's never seen real warfare?" "Earth," Zara said simply. "You know that little blue planet where we have recreational wars every weekend and consider genocide attempts a fun Thursday evening activity?" The alien cadets erupted in laughter. The idea that primitive humans could be involved in serious military conflicts was absurd to them. Recreational wars. Orion's mandibles clicked with amusement. What do you fight with, sticks and stones? Sometimes, Zara admitted. It's more sporting that way. Though last month's continental extinction event was pretty fun, we only lost about 60 million people, which was way better than our previous record. More laughter from the crowd. They thought she was joking, making up ridiculous stories to seem impressive. But Lieutenant Rhea, who had been observing from the instructor's table, felt a cold chill run down her Andromedan spine. Something about the human's casual tone when discussing mass casualties triggered an alarm in her mind. The confrontation might have continued, but the afternoon training session beckoned. In the advanced combat scenarios, the alien cadets decided to teach the human a lesson about the realities of warfare. They equipped themselves with military-grade plasma rifles, energy shields, and tactical armor that cost more than most planets' annual defense budgets. They coordinated through neural links, moved with practiced precision, and deployed strategies learned from the galaxy's finest military academies. Zara showed up with a broken chair leg she'd found in the hallway. "Is that your weapon?" Veyron asked incredulously, his voice muffled by his combat helmet. "This old thing?" Zara hefted the makeshift club. "Nah, this is just for fun. My real weapon is up here." She tapped her temple with her free hand. The simulation began, and chaos ensued. The alien cadets moved like a professional military unit, covering angles, communicating through encrypted channels, and advancing with textbook precision. Zara moved like a natural disaster with a sense of humor. She used the broken furniture to trip sensors, trigger false alarms, and create diversions that sent the alien cadets chasing shadows. She improvised explosives from cleaning supplies, turned ventilation systems into sniper positions, and somehow managed to hack into their communication network to provide helpful commentary on their tactical mistakes. "Veyron, your left flank is wide open. Again. Orion, you're telegraphing your movements like you're directing traffic, and whoever's on point needs to understand that bunching up like that just makes it easier for me to take out multiple targets at once." By the end of the exercise, she'd systematically eliminated every single alien cadet using nothing but improvised weapons and superior tactical thinking. Lieutenant Rhea watched the playback recordings with growing alarm. During the action, every time Zara moved past a sensor, the Academy's systems flashed the same red warning. Earthborn combat classification, extreme do not engage. She'd been dismissing those warnings as system glitches. Now she was beginning to wonder if they were the only thing working properly in the entire Academy. The faculty conference room buzzed with nervous energy as Admiral Sci-Fi called the emergency meeting to order. The vegan admiral's translucent blue skin rippled with concern as she gestured toward the holographic display showing cascading system warnings. "Colleagues, we have a situation. Our security systems have been malfunctioning for 3 days straight, ever since the human cadet arrived. Every sensor she passes triggers maximum threat alerts." General Stratus, whose crystalline Silurian form refracted the room's light into rainbow patterns, waved a dismissive hand. "Admiral, please. We're talking about a human, from Earth, the same species that took 200 years to figure out faster-than-light travel and still thinks physical currency is a good idea." Commander Strider leaned forward, his scarred scales catching the light. "With respect, sir, I've been watching this cadet's performance. Something doesn't add up. She's outperforming our best students while acting like she's bored out of her mind." "Performance anxiety," Major Kale interjected, his multiple Centaurian brains processing data simultaneously. "Classic overcompensation. She's probably terrified and covering it with false bravado." Lieutenant Rhea cleared her throat. "Actually, I've been analyzing the sensor data. The warnings aren't random system glitches. They're consistent, specific, and escalating. According to our computers, this human represents a Class Alpha combat threat." General Stratus's crystalline laugh tinkled like wind chimes in a hurricane. "Class Alpha? That classification is reserved for species capable of planetary extinction events. Are you suggesting this small human female could destroy worlds?" "I'm suggesting we investigate before dismissing the warnings," Admiral Sci-Fi said firmly. "I've requested background checks on Earth's military capabilities." "Waste of time," Stratus muttered, "but proceed if it makes you feel better." Meanwhile, in the Academy's training yards, Zara had attracted an audience of younger cadets who seemed fascinated by her unconventional approach to everything. "Okay, kids," she said, addressing a group of wide-eyed first-years from various species. "Today's lesson is basic survival. Let's start with improvised weapons." She picked up a standard Academy food tray. See this? Most of you probably think it's just for carrying your lunch, but observe. With a quick twist of her wrists, she folded the tray into a sharp-edged projectile. Proper application of force, and you've got a weapon capable of severing major arteries. Aim for the neck or inner thigh for maximum blood loss. A young Andromedan cadet raised his hand tentatively. Cadet Chen, isn't that violent? Zara blinked at him. Violent? Kid, this is military academy. Violence is literally the point. She demonstrated another fold. Now if you want to get creative, you can use the tray's edge to dig improvised foxholes, or even better, set up punji stick traps using cafeteria utensils. From the observation deck, Commander Strider watched with growing horror as Zara began explaining how to turn dormitory bedsheets into garrets and use study lamps as incendiary devices. She's teaching them guerrilla warfare tactics, he muttered into his communicator. Advanced guerrilla warfare tactics. Back in the conference room, Admiral Sci-Fi's aide rushed in with a datapad. Ma'am, the Earth background checks are complete. Finally, General Stratus said, let's put this nonsense to rest. The aide's face was pale. Actually, sir, we have a problem. Most of Earth's military files are classified above our clearance level. Impossible, Stratus scoffed. We have Galactic-level security clearance. Yes, sir. But according to the Galactic military database, Earth's combat records are sealed under Protocol Black 7. Admiral Sci-Fi's translucent skin went completely white. Protocol Black 7 was reserved for species whose military capabilities were considered too dangerous for general distribution. It was typically applied to extinct civilizations whose weapons were too horrific to be studied. There must be some mistake, she whispered. The aide shook his head. I ran the check 3 times. Earth's files are locked behind the same security protocols used for the Destroyer Wars and the Void Plague incidents. Outside, Zara's impromptu survival lesson had evolved into what could only be described as advanced killing with household items. Now this is important, she was saying, holding up a standard comedy device. You can overload the power cell to create a small but effective explosive. The blast radius is only about 10 meters, but the shrapnel pattern will take out anything organic in the immediate area. A Regelian cadet raised multiple tentacles. Cadet Chen, why do you know so much about killing things? Zara looked genuinely puzzled by the question. Don't you? I mean, isn't that what we're here to learn? How to neutralize hostile forces efficiently? She shrugged. Back home this is basic kindergarten stuff. We cover advanced planetary siege tactics in elementary school. Commander Strider's chime crackled. All faculty to Conference Room Alpha immediately. Code Black Emergency. As the instructors hurried away, Zara continued her lesson. All right, who wants to learn how to turn a sonic shower into a directed energy weapon? Every hand in the group shot up eagerly. In the conference room, Admiral Sci-Fi stared at the sealed files on her screen. The only information visible was a single line: species classification, survival adapted apex predator, threat assessment, extinction level event capable. Perhaps, she said slowly, we should have read those system warnings more carefully. The attack came at 0347 hours, during the dead of night when the Academy's 3 suns had set, and the campus was bathed in the pale glow of emergency lighting. Final examinations were scheduled to begin in 4 hours, and most cadets were either cramming for theoretical tactics tests or getting their beauty sleep before practical demonstrations. The first indication of trouble was when every alarm in the Academy began screaming simultaneously. Incoming hostile fleet detected. The automated defense system announced with mechanical calm. Krex'tar battle configuration identified. All personnel to defensive stations. This is not a drill. In the elite dormitory wing, Veyron bolted upright in his custom-designed sleep pod, his 4 arms flailing as he tried to process what was happening. Krex'tar? Here? That's impossible. This is neutral space. 3 floors below, Orion's compound eyes were scanning data feeds from his personal tactical display. Fleet composition: 37 heavy cruisers, 12 dreadnoughts, and what appears to be a planetary siege platform. They're broadcasting surrender demands. The Krex'tar were not known for their subtlety. A warrior species that had conquered most of the Outer Rim through sheer brutality and technological superiority, they viewed diplomatic niceties as a waste of perfectly good violence. Their ships were massive, angular monstrosities bristling with weapons that could crack planets like eggs. Admiral Cypher's voice crackled over the Academy-wide communication system. All cadets to emergency shelters immediately. Faculty to defensive positions. Activate all automated systems. The Academy's defenses were impressive on paper. Orbital defense platforms, energy shields, automated turret networks, and a small but modern fleet of patrol craft. It was more than sufficient to protect an educational institution in neutral space. It lasted exactly 17 minutes. The Krex'tar opened fire with concentrated plasma barrages that overloaded the shield generators before they could reach full power. The orbital platforms managed to fire exactly 3 volleys before being reduced to expanding clouds of superheated debris. The patrol fleet launched valiantly and was vaporized before clearing the atmosphere. In the emergency shelters, the Academy's elite cadets huddled together in various states of panic. Some were hyperventilating into oxygen masks. Others had gone catatonic with fear. A few were frantically trying to contact their influential parents, as if family connections could somehow stop an orbital bombardment. "We're going to die," whispered a young Andromedian cadet, his prismatic skin cycling through every color of terror. "The Krex'tar don't take prisoners," added a Regalian, his tentacles curled into tight defensive balls. "They're going to glass the planet." Veyron, who had spent the last 3 months boasting about his family's military traditions and his own combat readiness, sat in a corner rocking back and forth. "This wasn't supposed to happen. We're students, non-combatants. They can't attack us here." The shelter shook as another plasma barrage struck the Academy's upper levels. Emergency lighting flickered, and the smell of melted plastic began filtering through the ventilation system. That's when Zara arrived. She walked into the shelter like she was strolling into a coffee shop, still wearing her sleep clothes and carrying what appeared to be a modified plasma rifle she'd apparently assembled from spare parts. Her hair was messed up from sleep, and she looked mildly annoyed. "Okay," she said, surveying the cowering alien cadets with the expression of someone who had just discovered her morning coffee was cold. "So we've got Krex'tar attackers, failed defenses, and a bunch of trained military personnel hiding in a basement. Anyone want to explain why we're not fighting back?" The shelter fell silent except for the sound of distant explosions and someone's quiet sobbing. "Fighting back?" Orion's voice cracked with hysteria. "With what? They destroyed everything. The defenses are gone. The fleet is gone. We have nothing." Zara sighed deeply, the kind of sigh that conveyed entire volumes about the disappointing nature of the universe. She cracked her knuckles with audible pops that somehow sounded more menacing than the explosions outside. "Where do they keep the real weapons?" she asked. "Real weapons?" Commander Strider emerged from the faculty section of the shelter, his reptilian features grim. "Cadet, our entire armory was in the buildings they just destroyed. We have emergency supplies but nothing that could challenge a Krex'tar fleet." "Emergency supplies work fine," Zara said, already heading toward the equipment lockers. "What about the Academy's industrial facilities? Machine shops, chemical labs, power generators? Those are civilian installations," Major Kale protested. "They're not designed for combat applications." Zara was already pulling equipment from the emergency lockers. Basic tools, communication devices, standard building supplies. Everything's designed for combat if you use it right. The trick is thinking outside the box. She paused and grinned. Or in this case, thinking about how to turn the entire Academy into one giant weapon. She grabbed a handful of communication devices and began distributing them to the alien cadets. "All right, listen up, summer campers. Time for your first real military exercise. We're going to divide into teams and turn this place into the Krex'tar's worst nightmare." "But we don't know how to fight a real battle," protested a Centaurian cadet. "We're not soldiers." "You're not soldiers yet," Zara corrected, "but you will be. Because the alternative is being very dead, and trust me, being dead is way more boring than being a soldier." She began sketching out tactical positions on the shelter's display screen. "Team Alpha, you're taking the power plant. We're going to overload the fusion reactors and turn them into improvised artillery. Team Beta, chemistry labs. Start cooking up some homemade explosives. Team Gamma, machine shops. We need projectile weapons, lots of them." The alien cadets stared at her in confusion and growing terror. "But the power plant, if we overload the reactors, won't they explode?" asked Lieutenant Rhea. "That's the idea," Zara said cheerfully. "Controlled explosions directed at the Krex'tar fleet. Think of it as aggressive fireworks." As she continued outlining her insane plan, something remarkable began happening. The panicked alien cadet started paying attention. Her calm confidence in the face of certain death was somehow contagious, and her casual expertise made the impossible seem merely difficult. Now, Zara concluded, who's ready to show these Krex'tar idiots why you don't pick fights with military academy students? For the first time since the attack began, hands started rising. What happened next could only be described as watching a master craftsman transform raw materials into a work of art, except the art was warfare. The materials were terrified alien cadets, and the canvas was an entire military academy. Zara moved through the facility like a force of nature with a comprehensive battle plan. Within the first hour, she had turned the academy's cafeteria into a munitions factory, using industrial food processors to grind explosive compounds from cleaning supplies and kitchen chemicals. See the trick with improvised explosives, she explained to a group of wide-eyed Andromedan cadets while mixing what appeared to be salad dressing but smelled like death, is understanding basic chemistry. Sodium hydroxide from the dish sanitizer, potassium nitrate from the food preservatives, add a little sulfur from the water treatment system. She stirred the mixture with a serving spoon, and voila, high explosive compound that'll punch through Krex'tar armor plating. A young Regalian cadet tentatively raised a tentacle. How do you know it will work against Krex'tar armor? Zara paused in her stirring and gave him a look that was somehow both patient and terrifying. Because I've blown up Krex'tar ships before, lots of them. Their armor has a specific crystalline matrix that resonates at 47.3 kHz. This particular explosive mixture creates shock waves at exactly that frequency. She resumed stirring. Basic combat engineering. Meanwhile, Team Beta had transformed the dormitory towers into sniper positions. Under Zara's guidance, they removed furniture, created firing positions, and established overlapping fields of fire that would make any approaching ground forces wish they had chosen a different career path. Remember, Zara called out to the alien cadets as they positioned improvised weapons at strategic windows. The Krex'tar always deploy in standard assault formations. 3 waves, shock troops to test defenses, heavy armor to break through, then occupation forces to mop up survivors. She adjusted a cadet's rifle position. We let the first wave get close, take out their officers, then hit the second wave while they're still trying to figure out what happened to wave 1. Veyron, who had somehow been assigned to her team despite his earlier panic, stared at her in bewilderment. You're talking about this like it's routine, like you've done it before. Well, yeah, Zara said absently while wiring detonators. Tuesday mornings usually involve at least 1 Krex'tar incursion back home, sometimes 2 if we're having a slow week. The alien cadets exchanged glances. They were beginning to realize that all those boring tactical lessons Zara had been giving weren't theoretical exercises. They were field-tested combat doctrines. In the power plant, Team Alpha was discovering that their human instructors' casual knowledge of fusion reactor systems bordered on the supernatural. Okay, so we're going to redirect the plasma flow through these conduits, Zara explained, pointing to a complex diagram she'd drawn on the reactor housing. When the Krex'tar ships get into optimal range, we vent the entire output through the atmospheric processes, basically turns the Academy into a giant directed energy weapon. Major Kale, who had initially protested the plan, found himself following her instructions with growing amazement. This is insane, but it might actually work. Of course it'll work, Zara said. I used this exact setup to take out a Krex'tar dreadnought squadron during the Battle of Centauri 7. She paused. Though that was with military-grade equipment, this civilian stuff is actually more challenging. That's when Lieutenant Rhea finally decided to check the Academy's security database one more time. As the warnings continued flashing red around Zara, she input her highest-level access codes and demanded a full classification report. What appeared on her screen made her question everything she thought she knew about human civilization. Classified file, Terran Combat Personnel Name, Chen, Zara, Service Number, TC-7749, Omega Rank, Captain, Terran, Expeditionary Forces, Combat Classification, Extinction Level Threat, Veteran Status, Active, 47 Major Campaigns, Specialization, Asymmetric Warfare, Urban Combat, Improvised Munitions, Confirmed Kills, Psychological Evaluation, Functional Sociopath, Combat Effective Threat Assessment, Capable of single-handedly neutralizing planetary defense systems, Current status, on recreational leave, attending educational institution. Lieutenant Rhea stared at the screen in horror. "Recreational leave," she whispered. "She's here on vacation." The Krex'tar ground assault began at dawn, exactly as Zara had predicted. 3 waves of hulking warriors in powered armor, supported by floating battle platforms and siege engines. They approached the academy with the confidence of predators who had never encountered serious resistance. That confidence lasted approximately 4 minutes. The first wave hit the improvised minefield Zara had created using cafeteria supplies and basic chemistry. The explosions weren't just destructive, they were timed to create maximum psychological impact, detonating in sequence to channel the survivors into predetermined kill zones. Wave 1 neutralized, Zara announced over the communication network, her voice carrying the casual tone of someone commenting on the weather. Wave 2 approaching from the northwest. "Someone want to test our new reactor cannon?" The Academy's power plant discharged its redirected fusion output in a coherent energy beam that vaporized the lead Krex'tar battle platform and left a glowing crater where it had been standing. "Nice shot," Zara commented. "Though your targeting was a little off. We were aiming for the command unit, not the heavy weapons platform." "Sorry," came the reply from Major Kale. "Still getting used to the controls." "No worries. Learning curve and all that. Besides, they're all dead anyway." The third wave never made it past the dormitory sniper positions. The alien cadets, following Zara's tactical instructions, had created interlocking fields of fire that turned the academy grounds into a mechanical death trap. Throughout the battle, Zara provided commentary like a sports announcer covering a particularly entertaining game. "Oh, look at that. The Krex'tar commander is trying a flanking maneuver. Classic tactical mistake. Doesn't he know we can see him from the observation tower?" Pause for explosion. "Well, I guess he knows now." Incoming aerial assault from the east. "Someone want to activate the improvised surface-to-air missiles? We rigged them out of the gymnasium equipment, remember?" "Nice work, people. Though next time, try to lead the target a little more. These Krex'tar pilots are actually pretty decent for amateur hour." By the time the orbital bombardment began, Zara had already anticipated it and evacuated everyone to hardened positions she'd identified during her first-day tour of the facility. As the Academy's surface installations were reduced to rubble, she sat in the command bunker monitoring enemy communications and planning the next phase of her defense. "Okay, troops," she announced to the assembled alien cadets, who were now looking at her with expressions of awe and terror. "Phase 1 complete. Now comes the fun part. We're going to capture one of their ships and use it to take out the rest of the fleet." The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of distant explosions and someone quietly whimpering. "Any questions?" The last Krex'tar battleship exploded in a brilliant flash of light that briefly outshone all 3 suns. From the Academy's observation deck, now missing its roof thanks to the orbital bombardment, the assembled alien cadets watched debris rain down like deadly confetti across the campus grounds. The entire engagement had lasted 6 hours and 23 minutes. What remained of the Krex'tar fleet, 2 heavily damaged cruisers, was retreating at maximum velocity toward the outer rim, broadcasting surrender offers and apologies in 17 different languages. Zara stood among the ruins of what had once been the galaxy's most prestigious military academy, casually cleaning her improvised rifle with a torn piece of uniform fabric. Around her, alien cadets sat in shocked silence, their expensive combat gear scorched and their worldviews permanently shattered. "Well, that was fun," she announced cheerfully, as if she'd just finished a pleasant afternoon picnic instead of single-handedly orchestrating the destruction of an entire enemy fleet. "Though I have to say, your defensive positions could use some work. The approach vectors from the southern ridge were completely unguarded." Varon, his silver skin now permanently stained with smoke and his 4 arms shaking with adrenaline crash, stared at her with the expression of someone who had just watched reality fold itself into origami. We, the fleet?" "Oh, the fleet." Zara glanced up at the retreating Krex'tar ships. "Yeah, they'll be fine. Probably learned a valuable lesson about picking on educational institutions, though I doubt they'll be back anytime soon." She resumed cleaning her weapon. "The survivors will spread word that this sector is defended. Should keep the neighborhood quiet for a few decades." Admiral Sci-Fi materialized via emergency hologram, her translucent blue form flickering with instability from damaged communication equipment. Her usually composed demeanor had been replaced by barely controlled panic. "Cadet Chen," she began, her voice carrying the weight of someone trying to process the impossible. I need an explanation. Immediately. Our background checks have revealed irregularities in your service record. Irregularities? Zara looked genuinely confused. Everything should be in order. I filled out all the enrollment forms correctly. According to our security database, you are a Terran War veteran with an extinction-level threat classification. You are apparently on recreational leave from something called Earth's 47th Interstellar War. The alien cadets turned to stare at Zara with expressions ranging from awe to terror. Several made religious gestures associated with appeasing dangerous spirits. Oh, that, Zara said, as if the Admiral had just mentioned the weather. Yeah, I'm on vacation. The 47th is pretty much winding down anyway. We only have about 6 major enemy species left to pacify, and the Terran Command thought I could use a break. She gestured at the destroyed academy around them. Your brochure promised a relaxing educational experience at the galaxy's premier learning institution. Relaxing? Commander Strider's voice cracked like an adolescent's. Well, relatively speaking, I mean compared to the Andromedan Hive Wars or the Great Centaurian Purge, this was practically a spa day. She considered this thoughtfully. Though I have to admit, the Krex'tar were more competent than I expected. Usually takes them longer to find our defensive positions. Major Kale, who had spent the entire battle following Zara's orders without question, finally found his voice. The Andromedan Hive Wars. But those ended in complete planetary sterilization. Entire star systems were rendered uninhabitable. Right, good times. Zara nodded appreciatively. That's where I learned advanced urban warfare tactics. Nothing teaches you improvised explosives like fighting warrior insects in the ruins of civilization. Lieutenant Rhea, still clutching the classified file about Zara's service record, stepped forward shakily. Your file says you're classified as capable of single-handedly neutralizing planetary defense systems. Is that accurate? Well, I prefer working with a team, Zara said modestly. But yeah, if necessary. Though honestly, most planetary defense systems are pretty poorly designed. Too much reliance on automated systems, not enough redundancy in the command structure. She gestured at the smoldering remains of the Academy's defense grid. Case in point. That's when the transport ships began arriving. 3 massive vessels descended through the atmosphere, their hulls bearing the distinctive markings of Earth's educational exchange program. As they landed on the Academy's damaged airfield, loading ramps descended to reveal dozens of young humans in standard Academy uniforms. They looked remarkably similar to Zara. Casual confidence mixed with barely contained violence, like domesticated predators who had temporarily agreed to play nice. Oh good, Zara said brightly, waving at the new arrivals. The rest of my class is here. The lead human, a young man who appeared to be about Zara's age, jogged over with the easy stride of someone who had never encountered a problem he couldn't solve with applied force. Zara, how's summer camp treating you? He glanced around at the destroyed buildings and scattered alien cadets. Looks like you got started without us? Just a little welcoming committee, she replied. Nothing too exciting, though I think we're going to need to renovate the facilities a bit. She turned to Admiral Cypher's flickering hologram. Hope you don't mind some construction work. These humans are here for the full semester. The Admiral's translucent form went completely white. Full semester? Oh yes. Zara grinned, gesturing toward the approaching group of human cadets. Welcome to the Galactic Defense Academy, everyone. Hope you're ready for the most educational experience of your lives. As dozens of humans spread across the ruined campus, examining the damage with professional interest and discussing improvement plans in cheerful voices, the alien cadets finally understood why Earth's military files were classified at the highest security levels. They weren't dealing with primitive humans. They were sharing a campus with vacationing weapons of mass destruction who thought interstellar warfare was a recreational activity. The truly terrifying part? They seemed to be having fun.